What up, Masters? Welcome to another episode of Path to Mastery Podcast, and we have a special treat for you. We have three absolute rock stars that we did a panel with last week that just shared how they're crushing it right now in the midst of everything happening and what they're doing to prepare, guys, going forward as the things start to loosen up and we get back to the new normal is what they're going to call it, right? So that said, I am bringing back the Bootcamp, my friends. I know a lot of you had participated in the past, so we're bringing back a Bootcamp. It's called the 2020-2020 Real Estate Bootcamp, starting June 2nd, my friends. June 2nd from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern. Listen, here's what we're going to cover, and we only have 24 seats. Anybody that's worked with me knows when I work with you, I am all in, 100% committed to making sure you get everything, every piece of value, and this works. So that's why I'm limiting it to 24 people so I can spend the time with everybody. We're going to focus on sphere of influence. We're going to focus on expired sellers, for sale by owner sellers, absentee owners. In the last 2 weeks, guys, I've signed 5 listings between expired sellers and my sphere of influence. All right, absentee owners, we're building a massive pipeline, wholesaling deals, social media, how to focus more on social media, going back and re-engaging those contacts with the banks and REO companies, plus so much more, daily role play, daily lead generation, just everything. Listen, accountability. I want you to be super successful. I want you to be prepared going into these changes. We do not want anybody leaving the real estate industry, my friends, because it's going to get challenging. All right, that said, we'd love to have you in the camp. Price normal $997. My friends, we're doing a special right now if you sign up before May 12th. Okay, we're going to say May 12th. If you sign up between now and May 12th, you're going to get it for $697. Then it's going to go up $100 a week until June 2nd. So again, get registered now, 24 seats. If you register now, I'm going to get started with you right now. All right, hey, super excited to work with you. Go to davidihill.com/2020 bootcamp. Again, don't forget the I, davidihill.com/2020 bootcamp. Listen, shut off the player right now, register right now, and then you can listen to this episode. Again, davidihill.com/2020 bootcamp. Get registered. I look forward to seeing you soon. And hey, enjoy this episode. It's awesome. Okay, hey, we are live, guys. Welcome to Crushing Your Goals from Home and Beyond. As they open up the doors and let us out of our homes. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Yeah, right, awesome, cool. I'm super excited to be able to host this amazing webinar, and I know we respect you for investing your time. We want to make sure it's a good use of your time because there are so many Zoom meetings and webinars going on these days that, we want to make sure we bring value, and we want to make sure you say, you know what, I picked the right webinar. That said, we have some rock stars that are going to share the strategies that they're using, not just now to generate business, but when I can't even say the word. The word is when the doors open.
Proverbial?
And proverbial. Thank you. Yes, there's my word. You're awesome. See, you're my co-host. Thank you, Tina. I appreciate that a lot. All right. So that said, we're gonna get started. And I want us to jump right into content. We're gonna bring you some strategies. We're gonna bring you some mindset. We're gonna bring you some tools and some things. And at the end, the last maybe 10, 15 minutes-ish, we're gonna open it up for questions so you can put your questions in the chat box. And what I will do is if you post a question, then I will unmute you, and then you can ask your question in person, or you can at least dialogue. Does that sound okay? Does that sound okay, Jim?
Great. Sounds good to me, man.
I love it. All right, good. We're good to go then. All right, that said, we're going to start with Tina Beliveau. Tina, tell us, who are you? Tell us a little about your business, and what do you do?
Thanks for having me. So hi, I'm Tina Beliveau. I'm a realtor. So I've been an agent since 2005. I was a solo practitioner for the first half of my career or so. In 2013, I started building my own real estate team called the Beliveau Group. Cumulatively, over the years, I've sold over 1,200 homes, a lot of that through and with my team members. And my business model is all about referrals, sphere of influence, social media, particularly Facebook. And that's where I've done 90 to 95% of that business. From 2016 to 2019, I was also in a management, recruiting, and leadership role in the brokerage world. So I've had a lot of experience with everything involved with recruiting, retention, training, brokerage operations. I'm now back full on in the real estate agent game at EXP and loving how all of that's going. So I'm in a really awesome place in my business to contribute to this webinar because I am rejuvenating my database after being in management for 3 years. So I'm excited to share more about that.
Awesome. Thank you, Tina. We appreciate that. I'm also really excited to be back in the real estate trenches myself. So
yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. All right, James Gray. How's it going, my friend?
Hi, man. Listen, thanks for having me. Yeah, so my name is Jim Gray. I got into real estate. I got my license in 2013. In a 6.5 year span, I sold 422 houses, built a team. I became a MAPS coach. If you guys know what MAPS coaching is, it's a sister company to Keller Williams. So I had a really great experience coaching teams and emerging teams. In that time. Currently, I'm a co-founder of the Thrive Network, which is a network inside of EXP that has a little over 500 agents in that network, and I'm an executive in charge of agent production. So my days consist primarily of looking at production strategies that an agent can run either from the comfort of their own Zoom link or thinking about what the post-COVID scenario may look like here in the coming weeks and months. So I got to tell you, I spent a lot of time thinking about where we just were, where we are now, where do we think we're going to be, and what are the practices and strategies that'll help, high-minded, growth-minded agents be successful.
Awesome, my friend. Well, appreciate that, and I call you the production ninja. So
all right.
Thank you for joining us. All right, awesome. And my favorite secret weapon, which is part of my new network here, is Sean Goerss.
And I was wondering who you're talking about.
The guy is like a master. I don't know, just whatever. He just figures stuff out. Man, he builds code, does all kinds of. He'll build a website. Like you're talking to him about doing something on Google, and he'll build a website for you at the same time. It's not
quite.
Anyway,
That's
yeah.
kind of.
All right. So anyway, Sean, what do you do, man?
Yeah, quick. My background and relevance here is I grew up in real estate. I've been licensed for 16 years, 17 years now. And, most recently last year, my real estate expansion team sold just north of 170 million in volume for about 5 million in GCI and 460 some houses. We've been blessed to work with dozens of realtors all across the United States. And now we're doing that. I am a co-founder of Thrive Network at EXP as well. And, so we're learning how to do that with restrictions across multiple states with a lot of our business partners. So hopefully we've got, I think some best practices, boots on the ground in the trenches, stuff that we can share and sharpen each other with today. So thanks for having me, David.
Absolutely, man. And we'll start with you, Sean, since you have the mic. So, first question is what would you say was the biggest shift? I remember me on March 12th, I'm in Massachusetts. That was the day there was a lot more news were coming out about what's coming out about the virus, and people were starting to get a little more nervous, and they kind of shut things down. What would you say has been the biggest shift for you since that happened?
Yeah. So I think the biggest shift, I think probably, definitely for me, and I think for a lot of us, is mindset. So much of what we originate in life or in our business is going to start where it's the mindset that we come from. And I know for me, it was a good test, right? It's an interesting dilemma to be faced with the whole, coronavirus thing. And, first time in 100 years, people talking back to 1918 with the Spanish flu. And I think that the easy thing, or if you're not careful, the thing that I could slip into is just be fear-based, right? And which is really a dangerous spot to live in, because when you're fear-based, you tend to retract, you go into analysis paralysis, don't take action, maybe even don't take the action you need to, like a burning building, you need to quickly take action. And so the thing that I had to focus on and with our people was how are we going to focus on what we can control? Because there's always lots of things you can't control. This, I think, brought it to the forefront in terms of mindset, is to focus on the things you have control over. So that's what it was for us and for me.
I love it. And we'll get a little deeper into that as well. And I know before we started recording, one of the things we talked about was we wanted this to be about mindset, because that's critical, but also what are the strategies and what are some of the tools that we're implementing and things like that as well. So we're actually in action. So awesome. Yep. So Jim, I'll ask you the same question. What would you say for you? Was it mindset as well, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, well, 100%, right? So there's a lot that can be said about what are the big takeaways, what's going to be different, how do we perhaps modify our behaviors, and here's the thing I'm discovering with the teams I'm working with, and something that I hope will be helpful to the group is, you guys, the fundamentals don't change. The fundamentals don't change. The fundamentals don't change. And here's one other idea. The fundamentals, they don't change. So I guess the thing
what doesn't change? What was that?
What I'm saying is,
what's the fundamentals?
Hello, is this thing on? Can you hear me? What I'm saying is, yes, we can't walk out into the street or go to a coffee shop or meet in a house, right, to create relationships or interact with prospects and sphere. But we live in an age where we have multiple other technologies that allow us to do the exact same thing. So guess what? Everybody who needs to be spoken to still needs to be spoken to. The scripts at their most fundamental level, for the most part, do not change, right? So I guess the thing I want you to feel better about, if you're feeling fear, right, as Sean brings up, it's easy to slip into fear, and you'll find that the most common trait of successful people, you guys, is courage. It's actually the most common trait among successful people, is they are just courageous in the face of fear. So if you understand that, look, if you're feeling nervous about where you are with the market and your business, that's good, because you can't be brave without first being afraid, right? That's number one. Number two is just know. The fundamentals don't change. So make your calls, do your follow-up, talk about timing and motivation. And then the thing that's been on my mind lately is that the people you're talking to about selling homes or buying homes, they know less than you do. And even though you might feel like you don't know a lot, you certainly know more than the people who you're speaking to. So I guess I would want you to feel empowered to be okay to say, you don't know what you do know, but you can give probably a pretty good idea of what is going on. And even that little bit will bring a lot of comfort, I think, and value, to the people you're interacting with.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think for one of the things that we started doing right away as well was providing information. Like from day 2, attorneys were sending me information. I was repurposing it, I guess, and sending it out to our database. And people really, really appreciated that, because we were becoming a resource for them to keep them informed as to what was going on. And I think, and we'll talk more about that as well going forward. So Tina, same thing, with regards to the shift. Was it also mindset for you, or?
There's mindset pieces and action pieces, but I want to speak to the mindset because I had a really interesting awareness the other day. I was on the phone with an agent who's a friend of mine. He is 3 or 4 years into the business, and he is like, he's hungry. He's got the willingness to hustle right now. We were talking about how he's doing through this time. And as I was talking to him, it hit me where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm that veteran agent who kind of doesn't feel naturally like reinventing myself. Like I'm 15 years in like I am that person. Because I was telling him in 2008, which that was the market that I cut my teeth in, I was in the place he was in where I was willing to do anything I needed to do to grow my business. And I've noticed in these couple months some internal resistance, disappointment, like, oh man, like, do I really have to blank, blank, blank for me, I'm also in a rebuild mode with my business. So it's kind of just like accepting reality and moving through it. So it was kind of cool in that conversation where I identified, like, I am that veteran agent that I'm going to reinvent myself. Don't get me wrong. But there are a lot of other people who are tired. They don't want to become tech savvy. This is your opportunity to overtake those people and capture their database or capture the business that they're not in front of for whatever reason. So it kind of fueled my fire, but it was also like just a reality check of where I've been. So that was one thing. And the second thing that I've been dealing with from a mindset perspective is remembering that results take time. So for anyone else who's watching this that's impatient like I am, I have started doing some really awesome activities to cultivate business. And I can talk more about what those are. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm doing. And I, like a week or two ago, started to feel really frustrated where I was like, where are the referrals? Where are they? And I've had to talk to myself and remember that this is a cyclical business and I can't do activity today and expect the closing tomorrow. I know that much, but I think it's just this impatience, especially with the pandemic, where it can feel a little bit like we're in an echo chamber where we're doing the right thing, but people aren't. Yeah. And I'm not trying to put a limiting belief, but the reality is, like, we might do all the right things and people still aren't going to pick up the phone because they don't want to shop right now. Some do, but some don't. So just recognizing that the result funnel or timeline might look different because of the place that people are in logistically, financially, and or emotionally. So it's helped me to remind myself. But the other thing is just opening up a little bit more and talking with people I trust, saying like, hey, like, this has been really hard for me. And that's very freeing.
Yeah, love that. And so Jim talked about, was it fundamentals, Jim? Is that the word you used?
Yes, the fundamentals don't change.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. And you talked, and I think Jim also said scripts, and you talked about, having these conversations and maybe, things aren't happening as fast as you'd like them to happen. So my thought process going back to that is when this first started, I was calling a lot of people and really just checking in on them. And just, are you okay? How are things? Are you safe? Do you need anything? We're 2 months into this now. The conversations have changed, right? I mean, I think one of the challenges I'm seeing is there's still a lot of agents that are still having those initial conversations where now the conversation's like, hey, you really want to start looking at, if you can safely, looking at figuring out ways to get your house back on the market, ways to buy a house, because things are changing. Is that the same thing you guys are experiencing? Sean, we'll start with you. So what do those conversations look like for you now? Yeah,
so exactly. One of the best things we can do is get real to get right. And to the idea of that we know more than our prospects or our clients or the general population knows. My question would be, what data are you using to back up that suggestion? So we are watching number of showings. There's a really handy tool out there that we can post in here afterwards on how many showings are happening in the United States or in your state. And then I think also we picked this up from Tina a little bit, part of it, which was, are you tracking in your market how many new listings are coming on the market and how many houses are going under contract each week? So on a weekly basis snapshot, and compare this week of this year to this week of last year. And look, there's no bad news, David. The number is what the number is. In a lot of my markets, like in Minneapolis, St. Paul, both of those numbers are off depending on the week by 30 to 40%, both of them. The reality that you introduce to a prospect when you're talking to them about that now with a buyer or a seller in terms of going and buying a house or selling a house, I think needs to start with the number isn't zero. Under contracts or people putting their house on the market, it didn't go to zero. And there's a lot of social proof, and people will find solace in that because they'll realize, okay, I do want to list my house or I do want to buy a house. Other people are doing it too, right? It's down definitely, but other people are doing it too. And then the second part of that is then they just need to know from you, how would I do that? Again, we're talking about this. We're getting on all these Zooms as realtors and stuff every day. How many times have you shown proactively a particular prospect or your entire Facebook group your entire Facebook audience or whatever it might be, your entire sphere of influence, have you let them know we have a way to show you properties? We have a way to, and this, this does vary by state and municipality. We have a way to list your house and connect a buyer and a seller. You are playing matchmaker. If you do not show your prospects that you have a plan, you have a way to do it, they will just continue to say, I'm going to wait. I'm going to sit on the fence. I'm going to see how this all shakes out. Right? Which might be a really poor choice for them right now.
Could be a long time too.
Right. Or just a limiting belief. Right. And this happened back in 2008. Jim and I have done a webinar on this of surviving that housing recession. And we had many people who came to us when, Chicken Little and the sky is falling. And they said, you know what? We're just going to wait for this to all blow over in 6 months. We're just going to wait. We'll wait till next summer. Well, guess what? Next summer, they lost more equity. They lost 5 or 10 or 15% equity. So, I always say, do it when it makes sense for you and your situation to make a move. Don't wait, for the market to recover, because in real estate, the market in real estate, generally, it doesn't bounce back next week like the Wall Street does, or like oil prices do. That's typically not what happens in real estate. And it could be more sudden this time. So I say generally let's just decide, here's a path where you can go with it in terms of scripts that you're using. Here's how we can do this. Here's the statistics. Does it make sense for you to move forward today? If it does, let's move forward today. Let's not wait, right? And here's what we're going to do next. And always have the next thing in mind, not like, hey, we're going to think about it over the weekend. This is a common fundamental, right? Yeah. Which is, let's do this. Let's take care of the initial paperwork. Let's get, started, get the ball rolling, and then we'll take it one step at a time, and I'll guide you through the whole process. That's what works. That's what's working.
I like to really piggyback on that, because so a fundamental, right? You guys, you'll sell more houses if you're a good listener, right? So listen to your prospects' language. Sean really hit on that. Nothing is selling. The real estate market is tanked. I can tell you that I work in the greater Rochester market. Well, Mr. Seller, would you be surprised to know that at the peak of COVID in the last 30 days, 2,003 properties have gone under contract? 2,003. And then, by the way, just a little nugget for you. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. So, Mr. Seller, I hear what you're saying, but it's interesting. 2,003 properties have gone under contract in the last 30 days in Monroe County. And then as that silence lingers, you guys, this is a little ninja move. Here, listen carefully to what they say next.
Yeah, no doubt. So what are you saying, Jim? Like, because you're hearing this a lot. We're hearing this. Well, I'm going to wait till the coronavirus thing's over. Like, when is that going to be, right? I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but right. So
let's go back to the fundamentals. Yeah. So what would be this is where asking great questions. Well, tell me about that. What's important to you about waiting until after the coronavirus is over? Well, golly, Jim, no houses are selling. That's an interesting thought. Can I tell you, since Corona's been going on?
So let's role play that, you and I. I'll be the seller. Okay. Yeah. How's that sound?
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
All right. So Jim, I appreciate it. I just don't want people in my house right now.
Oh, is that right? What's important to you about that?
Well, I mean, it's people with a virus. I've got, kids. I've got, I can't forget my wife's sick. Yeah. I don't want to take that chance, honestly.
Yeah, brother, I totally get it. What if we could sell your house and not have anybody physically tour it? How would that be?
I mean, how would you do that?
That's a great question. So that's exactly why we should set a time for 30 minutes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through how the magic of technology is allowing us to do that. And it's pretty fantastic. What works for you? Does this Tuesday at 2 work better, or would you prefer to go at 4?
Got it. Yeah. So
now awesome. let's press pause. Everybody on this call might be going, what exactly am I going to say on that call? And can I say,
yeah,
isn't it beautiful? You're going to spend the next 24 hours getting the answer to that question. And then guess who you are? Now you're a baller, because You're going to have that meeting. You're going to sign that buyer. You're going to be Superman and move on to the next.
Awesome.
Woo!
Awesome. Love
I'm
it.
tired. I need to go make some calls.
All right. So
ready.
what are you saying, Tina? What are you saying to people now? What kind of, are you having those real deep conversations? Like, I know I was on a call with Grant Cardone a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, listen, you just got to be brutally honest with people right now. You got to tell them their house is turning into a liability as they're waiting. I mean, are those similar to conversations you're having as well?
Yeah, I think like I've always been like really consultative. So it helps me to be armed with simple statistics that prove whatever point I think needs to be proven. I think Sean made a great point of figuring out, diving deeper into someone's personal logistics. Like, is it the right time for you to be moving regardless? Like, do you even know what your house is worth right now? Like figuring out what the actual objections are, just like that role play that you just did. Like, that was just genius. So I think it all lies in having a real life conversation. It's hard to do over email. This is actually a perfect story. So we had a really nice listing. We were set to do everything, video, marketing, et cetera. And then we got the shelter in place order the day before the photo shoot. And the seller was just like, no, like we stop. And it was disappointing because I knew that the listing would have sold within like a few days, even if we had just moved forward, but she didn't want to, she wasn't comfortable. So we cooled our heels a little bit, and then she wanted to just kind of disengage. And I said, hey, could we get on the phone? We had a whole conversation. It turned out her bigger concern was about the logistics of her home sale contingency and buying and selling at the same time and how everything was going to work. Unwound the entire thing, walked her through a solution, which was a fast closing with a long rent back, and talked her basically into being a coming soon listing with video tours only. We did that. I'm expecting a really good offer on that property today. It took 4 weeks, that whole thing that I'm describing to you, and it would have been easy to give up. But the only way that we uncovered what was really going on was by getting off of email and text onto the phone,
great point.
Figuring it out, listening, and that's a $700,000 listing. That's double our average price point. So I'm psyched. And that never would have happened without that one conversation about timing.
Yeah. I think it comes down to questions like you've all said. Let me ask you this, as we're dealing with this, we're dealing with our own stuff too, right? I've got family, I've got kids home, things are more challenging. There's a lot more no's than we're accustomed to. We had five, I think, sellers plus that were supposed to list with us that have all put things on hold. And it doesn't matter what I said, they're just not prepared to do anything. How do you stay motivated with all that going on, Tina? Like, what do you do to keep your mindset right and stay motivated in the midst of all this?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. It's been a combination of things. Exercising in the morning really helps me. I have a spin bike in my house, and I found even just like a 10-minute warm up, whether I do like an epic workout or just get myself moving, it is the number one thing that defines whether I have a really great day or an okay or possibly bad day, like psychologically. So that's been huge for me. Connecting with people. I love being on this Zoom, but in general, Zooms don't give me a lot of energy. So I've been doing a lot of like text and phone calls and just finding ways to feel good inside of what works for me and giving myself permission to just opt out of anything that doesn't work for me and not like doing things out of a sense of duty or obligation. And then I think it's just a really important time to lean into our strengths, which looks so different. Even just knowing the four of us that are the presenters on here, we all have really powerful strengths that show up differently. For me, I am just a prolific Facebook user. It's been the number one driver of my business. Facebook has been out since basically I became a real estate agent. And I had never made a group for my clients. I had thought about it and had limiting beliefs for years about whether it would be good. Would they like it or not? Would it feel like too weird for them to be clumped with a bunch of people they don't know? But finally, I was just like, let me get over it. I've launched the group and it's awesome. And it gives me a ton of energy. And it's one of my favorite things to do right now is just pour into that group. So there might be something else for the people who are watching or listening to this. Like, what do you love doing? Figure out how to leverage it for your business. Even if you don't exactly know how it's going to manifest into business, if you're more of a relational seller like I am, just find a way to engage. And for me, I'm also obsessed with doing stuff that's more leveraged at the group level. So for me, Facebook group work is a lot more effective than one-on-one conversations. I'd rather nurture them till they come to me and want to have a one-on-one.
Yeah. Sounds like you get your energy from people and from relationships. So that's important. Mm-hmm. So you stay engaged in those relationships, which helps. Right?
Yep.
So
yep.
For me, I'll run. I go run.
Run away from the people.
Yeah, I run. Anyway, it's all good. I'm in the middle, right? I'm like not a full extrovert, but I'm also not a full introvert. So
yeah,
so I can turn it on and off, which is nice. But I do a lot of running. It helps me. Exercise and running is so important. It's critical to me. And if I don't do it, I don't feel right. So what about you, Jim? Same thing. How do you stay motivated in the midst?
Well, the good news is I feel no compunction to exercise whatsoever. So for those of you who don't exercise, walk on.
There you go.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I'm a big one on, I call it managing inputs. So we have to be so careful on what we let in, right? So if our mindset really does essentially if it really is the determiner of the power of our activities, then we want to be really careful what goes in. I'll give you an example. I will not watch the news, especially right now, right? I will not watch the news. That's not to say that I'm unaware of what's going on, say, with COVID, right? I'm getting my news in a particular way on that so that I can limit that, because I'm the type that I know myself. It'll start to depress me, or I'll start to feel fear over that. You know what I mean? So I understand that I gotta watch that. The other thing too for me, by the way, this might seem kind of odd in the Zoom culture. I shower and shave every day, and I dress for work every day. So for me, I don't roll out of bed and then roll into my home office, right? I make a clear, this is just me now, this is a habit of mine. I make a clear demarcation. I'm going to work. I'm in a professional business dealing with professional people. So I want to show up as a professional. So just that particular desire of mine, it kind of naturally fuels my mood, in a good way. So that's what I do.
I love it. It's funny. There's someone on this call now, and he knows who he is. I was on a webinar with him about a month ago, and I hadn't shaved my head, and it is intentionally shaved bald, but if it grows in, it grows in as like a horseshoe. And he's like, dude, what's up with your hair? And I was kind of like my wake up call, like, oh man. So, ever since that day, I've been shaving my head, keeping it nice and clean, wear a jacket. Yeah. It's important. It makes a difference. It makes a big difference.
For me, it does.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't have to shave your head, clearly. So you're in good shape. Sean, you and I, you can relate though, right? So
totally.
What do you do to keep your mindset strong, man?
Okay. So
keep motivated.
I love it's similar to what they said. I think like knowing yourself, you can, if you want some good self-exploration on this, take a disc profile, or there's another one that my wife talks about all the time on her podcast, which is the Myers-Briggs. So there's 4 different metrics with 2 different variables. So you end up with 16 possibilities. And that has really helped me to better understand myself, where my energy comes from, how to manage my energy in different areas of my life, whether it's physical, spiritual, emotional, mental, professional. And I had a transformational coach, David, a wonderful transformational coach who helped me to understand how one part of my life impacted all the other parts of my life. So if things aren't going well for me physically, if I'm not eating healthy, or I also go for runs, which has actually been a breakthrough for me because I was in some major car accidents 15 years ago. And really, I used to be an avid runner like you. What was it? Over 5 miles on your on your 51st birthday or something. Is that right?
5.1.
5.1.
Just normal day in the trenches.
Yeah. So like until COVID, that would have been like completely undoable for me ever in the last 15 years. So I've had to find ways to exercise or get back into that and be able to manage my physical, because I know it's going to impact my energy at work here. It's going to impact my energy with my kids. It's going to impact my mental state, even just with, all the, the positive endorphins and chemicals in my body. And so I would just encourage those of you that are hearing this, understand yourself and understand that what you needed 2 months ago is different. Like we say, like a new normal. It's a new normal for yourself, and be okay to keep some things the same, keep some routines the same. And I do similar. I try to keep my routine the same. Doesn't work 100%. At the same time, there are some things that you have to look up and say, excuse me, they really need to change.
Masters, we're going to get you right back to the show. Listen, speaking of change, right? We have our boot camp coming up. I'm really excited to get back into the trenches with everybody. I was doing this years ago, and then I got back into my business, and now I have a little more time to focus on these camps. I'm really excited about it. We're going to go deep on building your listing business, on connecting with all types of people, from expireds to wholesale clients to absentee owners to your sphere of influence, your social media contacts. Everybody, guys, all in 6 weeks, intensive training with you, hands-on, hand-holding, accountability, assignments, homework. It's everything, my friends. Bootcamp 2020. If you are interested, check it out. Go to davidihill.com/2020 bootcamp. Get registered, and don't forget about our sponsors, Vulcan 7. As a matter of fact, you may want to pick them up while you're doing this camp so that you have access. My friends, again, 2020 Bootcamp. Go to davidihill.com/2020 Bootcamp. Get registered right now so you get to hang out with me at a high level for the next 6 weeks, my friends. And I'll tell you, you're going to come out of that with a different perspective and a ton of business, my friends. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the show.
Or I need to be flexible in that area. I need to give myself grace. I need to give myself the flexibility to say, I am in a new normal. Not everything's going to be the same. Look, we have 4 kids. We homeschooled before COVID. Okay. However, I didn't work from home. And so that's been an interesting thing. So I'll just give you a simple thing. One thought I had on this is, okay, I'm going to work from home now. One thing I'm going to do a little bit differently is I am going to take my breaks where I normally just go down to get coffee, and I'm just going to say hello to a kid that I see. We have children that walk all around our house and are always doing something different, which is amazing. They've got frogs and iPads, or they're doing schoolwork, or they're drawing, or they're fighting, or whatever it might be.
Are these your kids or just random kids in the neighborhood?
I know.
Just random.
You never know where one's going to pop up or what's going to be happening when you walk out of the room. So things like that, give yourself the authority to not keep everything the same. Also, probably realizing that most of us are creatures of habit, and that if you change a habit in one part of your life, it can really impact the other parts of your life. So be careful, right? Be careful what you keep or what you change.
I love it. So I want to start to shift gears a little bit, but for everybody on, in about, 10 minutes or so, I'm going to open it up for questions. So if you have questions, you can type them in the chat box, and we could even unmute you if you want us to. All right. So based on what you just said, I find it hard sometimes, Sean, to kind of shut it down. And I think Jim may have touched on this as well. I'll find myself rolling out of bed in the morning, I get on my knees, say my prayer, and then I'm on my computer. And there's been days, and I'll make myself exercise during it. I'll go get a cup of water and do 50 push-ups or something. Then I'll come back, and I'll do that all day, But then I'll find myself at the end of, it's 7:30 at night, and I'm still sitting in front of this computer. That's not good. How do you shut that down? Are you able to shut that down? Is that just a crazy?
That's a challenge I've always had, especially for those, who are high Ds or high drivers, which I am. So, what I find is 2 things. So one, things that require my full attention. So it could be walks with my kids. Lately, like my son and I have started playing video games. And like when I'm doing that thing, then I don't have time to check my phone or think about 20 other things that I could be thinking about. I just have to think on that one thing. There's something cathartic about that. Dates with my wife, we do in the mornings, once a week with coffee, where we literally drive, our kids are just old enough where we can literally drive away from the house and get a coffee in the car and drive around. And then the other big thing is find things that I enjoy. So I enjoy movies. We're actually traveling right now, so that's been an interesting component of it. And this is a little self-admission that I'm kind of a techie guy. So I'll purposely like find content that I like, a video or something really techie that I want to learn more about. This is going to sound nuts, right? And then like I watch that after like 8 p.m. So I give myself the authority to find stuff that I enjoy, that will take my entire focus off of work. And frankly, I mean, I'll just be honest. I have been working a lot. I've been working a lot. We're launching this new business. I mean, I've been putting in, and we've been talking to the agents about this, if you're not getting the results you want, I mean, to a certain extent, there are periods in everybody's life where you need to crank, you need to grind. I'm talking like, it could be hours, it could be intensity. For me, it's been both, and it's been 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. And I talk to my wife about that ahead of time when I can. But for some of us, that's just what you need to go do. It'd be like going and getting a second job, right? Like sometimes you just got to do it.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I love that. Same, similar. I play Legos with my daughters, and I do that 4 or 5 times a week. So I have to find those moments, and sometimes it's just time blocking. Like I'll tell my daughter, just like, "Hey, we're gonna play Legos tonight," thinking like, "Oh my God, there's no way I can play Legos." But if I say it to her, she's gonna grind me down. She's gonna keep asking and asking, and eventually I'll play Legos, and then I forget. I forget about everything else going on when I'm doing Legos with her. It's an amazing time. I also meditate, but that's for another call. I do that religiously, which helps a lot. So let's jump into Jim. So Jim, I'm gonna give you the same question if you want. I don't know if you have the challenge of shutting down. I do, but with regards to what do you I'm curious to get your input. I know I don't have a crystal ball. I don't think you have one either. Well, I do see that thing on the shelf behind you. That's like a crystal, whatever that is. But
I keep baked goods.
There you go. But what are you seeing going forward? Like, what are your thoughts on this market, 6 months from now, a year from now? I'm just curious.
Well, so there's a couple things, right? So there are a couple schools of thought, right? The first is that there may be a lot of pent up demand, meaning all the people who want to buy or sell you guys have not necessarily gone away. They've just pressed the pause button. And so we may see all of them come back to market just later in the year. Okay, so that is a scenario. So just understand the money maybe you would have made right now, you'll make it, but it'll be in the future if you're observing and engaging in all the fundamentals of a real estate business. Doing your 5 jobs and doing them well, right? So that's the first thing.
What are the 5 jobs? Tell us the 5 jobs, since you said that.
So if you are a real estate agent, you got 5 jobs. Your first is to script practice and role play, right? The second is you want to lead generate. Third is you want to follow up with leads. The fourth is you want to prepare and go on appointments. And your 5th job is you want to negotiate contracts. Everything else that is not that, you guys, is not a money-making activity. It's not that it's not important, but everything should wait until those 5 jobs are done. And if you were going to focus on something because you had some extra time and you wanted to get good at something, I would look at those 5 things. And of the 5 things, may I say, and I think I can get an amen from the realtors, is if you focus on lead gen, everything else takes care of itself. Just FYI, just saying. So, there we go.
Fundamentals, Jim?
I feel like we should sing a song. Okay. So there may be a lot of pent up demand, right? And that means you put your running shoes on and get ready. Or we could be in a recession-like atmosphere. And all that simply means is you may just have to simply engage in more activity to get the same results. And the good news is if you do that, two things happen. You'll maintain results, and likely your results will increase, because most agents who are your competitors don't understand what their 5 jobs are. They're operating in fear and instinct. And you, because you're in the path to mastery, you understand that your life is about intention and practice. So I see those as the two things. Either A, we're going to put our running shoes on, or B, we really have to just be prepared to do more of our activities to get the same results.
So what I'm hearing is you have no idea. It's one of those two things. And that, no, I'm kidding. But I think we're all in this together, right? So yeah, that's reality. Yeah, prepare for either, and we're good, right?
Well,
I mean, that's
yes. Well, you need to lead generate either way.
Yes, yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm messing with you, Jim. So Tina, similar. Do you, with regards to, are you one of those people that needs to figure out a way to turn it off for people listening? Are you able to just do that, or?
Yeah, I yes. So it's funny. In 2019, I just exhausted myself. I was in a very unsustainable environment where I worked all the time, and there actually wasn't much to show for it. So coming into 2020, I promised myself that I would get my priorities straight. And I really have. And the pandemic has tested that. So it's definitely an active struggle for me. Like Sean, I am a high D. My to-do list stresses me out. One of the reasons I don't enjoy Zooms is I'm at my computer, and I would much rather half the time get done what is on my mind as not done yet. And so I think that's an interesting challenge, where the to-do list feels longer. There's extra communication to get one transaction done. So the reality is there's more work. There's different nuances we're adjusting to. So the work volume is higher. I was talking with one of the agent partners in my team yesterday, and she's like, I'm putting in 12 to 14 hours days. I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. And we unpacked it, and part of it was a leverage opportunity for her. And part of it was the reality that we're in, where we're kind of hustling to create more business at the same time as servicing what we do have. And it feels like it's not all adding up yet. And I've done this for long enough to know that it always does add up. And like you said, later, there will be some sort of V-shape pickup, whether that also then bounces back into a recession or not, I don't know. But I do believe there's going to be some of that financial bounce back for all of us later this year. I mean, I don't know, but that's just my sense of things. So it's been a challenge. I will say one thing that works really well for me is to go outside. Now, you may not have a nice outdoor area. I do just so happen to have a great deck that gets really good sun in the afternoon. I love just sun time. I love being outside. So a lot of the time I take my phone calls outside. But the other day I hacked an umbrella over my laptop so I could be outside and enjoy nature. And I worked for a couple hours, and I felt so happy and energized at the end. So that may be slightly too much of a niche recommendation for people, but sometimes it's how can you find a way to enjoy the stuff that you need to do? And then coupled with that, give yourself permission to cut off, and whether that's doing stuff that requires full attention, finding something you really enjoy. I've been focused on having great TV shows to look forward to at night, which is that's what I've got at this point, is what am I going to watch that's going to make me laugh or just be fun for me and my husband to totally unwind and be engrossed in something. And just planning things to look forward to, even if they're really minor, like going out. The other night, we have dogs. We don't have kids yet. So we went out to a pet store to buy toys for the dogs. That was our Saturday night outing. But we planned it, and it was something versus just sitting in the house again for the night.
That's great. That's awesome. Thank you. All right. So any questions? If you guys have questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. And I want to talk about strategy, though. I want to go right across and each of you give kind of a strategy. So if I was going to give a strategy right now, I'd say the key thing we want to be doing is focusing on motivated people. So finding motivated people, right? So there's sellers out. Not everybody's motivated, but there's going to be sellers that are motivated and that can sell. So an example would be a new construction home that's vacant, right? So a builder that has vacant homes. They're going to be motivated. The houses are fairly easy to show, right? Another example of that might be somebody that has a property that was an investment property that nobody lives in. So how do you get in touch with absentee owners, people that own multiple properties? Maybe they have vacant properties that they want to get rid of right now. So finding motivated people. So what would you say, Sean, is a strategy that you want to give all the people listening to this?
Well, right now, Jim and I are really focusing on sphere. So I think going back to your sphere, and like Tina mentioned, a Facebook group, anything you're doing to re-engage and educate your sphere and to be the real estate economist of choice. Now, with sphere, there's a couple of things that matter in terms of as a lead generation strategy, tactically, David. Number one is that that the frequency of connection with your sphere is such that you're always top of mind for them. So you're activating their RAS probably 3 or 4 times a month. I think we've metriced anywhere between like 52 touches.
3 or 4 times a month, you said?
3 or 4 times a month. So I'm talking like where you could add up the list on a spreadsheet of how many times you're touching your sphere and it should be probably for most realtors, what we find is between 52 and 108 touches in a year. Okay.
Wow.
52 and 108. Now that might be you're posting every day on Facebook and you might just count that your sphere sees that algorithmically, once a week. Okay. So I think frequency is one part, and then the number of people in that database. So if you legitimately went through your sphere and you've tagged them somehow, and let's say you've got 190, for most people, the tipping point seems to be around 250 to 300. You can go past that. You can be at 400, 500. Just make sure the touches, and as many of them are automatic or one-to-many leveraged is awesome. And then I think the other part with your sphere that people forget about is it is okay to ask, and it is actually healthy for you to ask for business. So come from contribution, and it can be asked for business, not in the sense of like, hey, who do you know today who's thinking of selling? Now, that probably worked pre-COVID. I learned that script from one of my coaches, Tony DeCello, right? That might be the case today. Or you could just condition them something like, David, I'm really coming from contribution and reaching out to anybody who has a real estate question. As I mentioned that, David, who's the top person that comes to mind that might have a real estate question that I could reach out to and just see if I could help them? Just coming from contribution. You will ask that question. Only 10% of people or so will probably have a response for you, sometimes even less. It doesn't matter. What you're doing is conditioning your people for that you're the person that can help. And now when they talk to their friend who just had a baby and they do want to sell their house, or they have a vacant investment property that they need to sell, so there's the numbers part of it, and then there's how you're actually activating your people to refer you. And both of those are equally important right now. They might be some of the strongest referrals, the strongest types of business. By the way, it's the lowest cost of business. If you have more time than money, then it's either going to be your sphere or it's going to be straight up prospecting to have not mets, right? And there's a lot of strategies out there for both of those. But sphere tends to be the one that you can have the most influence over in the short term.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So good, Sean. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So Jim, same question. What strategy right now? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, we're listening because the market, because there's a lot of upheaval and uncertainty. Although I think we can agree, it looks like people will be freer to engage in business. So what that naturally means is we're going to see. I would be dusting off your FSBO and expired scripts.
Yep, FSBO expireds. We were talking about short sales. If you have not lived through and been a real estate agent during 2008, we are dusting all of those off. And, we'll even have a system at some point here for people that want to get back into that, being able to counsel people. Look, if home prices go down, kind of maybe what Grant Cardone was referencing, David, if home prices go down 10% and you put 10% down, even if you put 15% down, and let's say home prices go down 10% over the next 15 months, all those people will be underwater. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if they lose their job and they're underwater, you need to know how to coach them. Yeah. And you want to be ahead of that.
And if those people, in many cases, depending on your market, they can kind of generally do that math. they'll want to sell their house. They realize they can't use a realtor, or they think they can't. And so they start as a for sale by owner, right? So, someone who is intentional and skilled will likely, help them sell that house as an agent.
Yeah, I love that. So we've heard sphere of influence, short sales. Obviously, I'm going in. I've been reconnecting with all the REO companies we used to work with, because that may start. So we're in there getting everything submitted, recreating those accounts with the big REO sites. So that's something we're doing as well. How about you, FSBOs, expireds? Obviously, they're out there. Those are motivated people too, usually, especially expireds.
Yep.
What about you, Tina?
So two things. One's quick and one's a really awesome idea that I haven't shared anywhere yet. So the quick thing is I did great in the last market downturn being an expired takeover agent. We're going to have an even bigger opportunity in this kind of market because there are going to be so many agents that don't do the right things in the pandemic for whatever reason. They don't embrace tech. They still don't get professional photography. They're not getting video. They're not getting Matterport. They're not doing virtual open houses, on and on and on. There's going to be a lot of dissatisfied homeowners out there looking for an agent to do the right things. So I think now positioning yourself as the person who's already doing that, so that they'll have, especially on social media, they'll have you in the back of their mind where they're like, why isn't my agent doing that? I see her on video. I see her doing this. I see her doing that. Why? What are you doing? And you haven't called me for a month. That's the expired dynamic in a nutshell. I love coming in and saving the day in those situations. And then, you stage the house, you price it right, you get great pictures, and then it sells in 2 days. And then that's a great testimonial. They refer you. I'm getting excited talking about it. So that's a thought on expireds and how you can actually position yourself for that early before maybe that raft of expireds actually start to happen. The other thing I've done that has been a huge success is I decided to launch a sweepstakes to re-engage my sphere. So it's called Beliveau Group Bonanza. I love to be cheesy. We're giving away cash prizes. So what we're doing is 3 $500 prizes. And basically you can enter the sweepstakes over and over again throughout a 2-week period. We're 1 week in, and people get entries for doing different things like referring us. They get the most points for that, for updating their contact info with us, because I had a lot of contact info fall out, or I've never had birthdays and stuff that I really want to have a killer touch campaign at the end of this. They get points for filling out online reviews. Our reviews had gotten stale. A lot of change, and all my reviews had old team member names. So I'm doing everything to incentivize what I want, which is accurate database info, reviews, and referrals. And they can refer themselves, of course, if they're the one thinking about moving. So I just updated my stats. We have had 210 entries in the last 7 days. And the people who have entered, it's people I sold houses to 10 years ago. They never come to my client parties. They've opted out of other stuff. They don't engage at all, but they entered the sweepstakes. So, so I'm psyched awesome about it. And at the end of this, I'm going to update my whole database, get all the data in, and then move forward with revamping my 36 touch overall. I found great software to do it. So if anyone wants to hear about it, I think that it's a really valuable thing to be doing. And we've had, I think, 6 referrals come in the last week. And quite frankly, I haven't even pushed it down people's throats as much as I could. So we're going to be picking up the phone more and making sure people know about it, or are going to keep doing their entries, because there's 11 ways to enter. So hopefully that kind of percolates as an idea for people, but it's been again, one-to-many leverage that puts a smile on people's face. And at the end, we're going to have that social proof. I'm going to do a big dorky check or something dropped off at their houses to really make an impact.
It could be like the Publishers Clearinghouse thing.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Steve Harvey shows up with a entourage, right? That's awesome. I was talking to an agent earlier today, and she is actually every day she's calling her sphere of influence and asking, do you want ice cream or do you want pizza delivered? Yes! And she's going out and she's making it she's not saying, hey, do you want me to come? She's like, which one do you guys want? Ice cream or pizza? How cool is that, right? I'm talking to her earlier today. It's a great idea. All right, so we're in wrapping up. We've got 3 minutes left, so we're going to be quick. I know, James, you have a hard stop at 2, so if you have to go, we respect that. Thank you. Actually, we'll start with you then. Why don't give us what's the greatest thing you learned from the COVID-19 pandemic?
I'm gonna end right where I began, friends. The fundamentals don't change, and the greatest trait of successful people is courage. So do the right things and do them fearlessly. That is my personal formula for success.
Love it. Thank you, sir. All right, Sean.
Be prepared. So like you mentioned, hustle in the short term, put the pedal down, and focus on what you have control over, focus on the activities. The results will come. If you're not seeing what you want now, change one thing at a time, check yourself on the fundamentals, and then have patience in the long term. So hustle in the short term, have patience in the long term.
Yeah, it's awesome. Perfect. Yeah. And Tina.
Mine would be work inside of your strengths. A huge part of what wasn't working for me in 2019 is I was in a role and also a situation where I just wasn't working in my strengths, and it was exhausting. And I promised myself that moving forward, I would only work in companies and in situations where I could do what I'm naturally good at. And I think the pandemic has highlighted that, because especially when we have days that are draining, things are hard, they're not working out. It's hard enough to work in my strengths, let alone like work on my weaknesses when there's other stuff pulling at me. So I think I would just encourage anybody watching this to like think about what brings you joy, what's been your favorite way to lead generate, what's been your favorite kind of client to work with, and dig into that. And I just know through experience that always works.
Awesome. Well, listen, everybody, I just want to thank you. It doesn't look like we have any questions, surprising, but that's okay. I am in the process of writing my second version of the sales playbook. So we're about 8 weeks out. Sales playbook, next level. We're not exactly sure the title yet, but I'm super excited about it. And I'm going to be sharing not just the strategies of prospecting, but sharing some of the ways I was able to get people like Gary Vee and Grant Cardone and Mel Robbins and people in Harv Eker, and the things that I did, like the whole process of getting them on my podcast and having relationships with those people now. It's the same thing you're going to use in your business. So please check out give me about 8 weeks. We'll have the new book out. I'm excited about that. If you have questions about anything we talked about today, shoot me a text. That's the easiest way. Or get me on Facebook. A lot of people are watching in our group right now. But any questions, the people that you just listened to, I'm privileged to have them as part of my team now. So we all work together. We support each other. And hey, we're growing, and I'm really excited about this. And if anybody's interested in learning more about that and learning about what it would look like to be partners with us, same thing. You can reach out to any of us. Sean, what's the best way to get in touch with you? Yeah,
you just hit me up on the Facebooks and stuff. That's the best.
Sean Goerss, like horse, but actually spelled different. How do you spell your last name again?
I think it's displayed on there, so it's
it is.
Goers. Yeah.
All right, Tina, same thing.
Same thing. Find me on Facebook. It's my place.
Awesome. Well, listen, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for your time. Everybody, thanks for spending your time with us. I hope this was valuable. I hope you got what you came for. And if you didn't, for some reason, reach out to me, and we'll make sure that you're made whole. So thank you guys, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Hey, before you jump on to what's next, I just want to thank you for checking out the show. And if you like what you heard, please give me a review on iTunes. It helps tremendously. It helps us get guests, and I just so appreciate it. And if you want, send me an email, and I will read your review right here on the podcast. Email me, david@davidihill.com. Again, I want to thank you. Check out our sponsors. I appreciate our sponsors. Without them, we can't do this. Vulcan7.com for your expired FSBOs, all that stuff. CRM, Vulcan7.com/path to mastery. Again, David's free book. Get yourself a free audiobook. And health and nutrition, is number one to me. So check out Advocare products, which are tremendous products. As a matter of fact, Patrick Mahomes uses the products. So go to livelongersmarter.com. Again, livelongersmarter.com to check out health and nutrition products. My friends, again, I appreciate you listening to the show. You rock.